Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'll just wait a couple more, just about a minute for folks to trickle in. All right. Welcome to the March 2022 NAG Investigators Working Group meeting. My name is Cecilia Dakers from the National Association of Attorneys General. Before we get started, I'd like to remind all attendees, if you're not already, to just mute yourselves. And should you have any technical difficulties on this platform, you can feel free to reach out to me via the chat function on the right side of the screen. And now I'm just going to hand it off to Holly to get us started. Holly?
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you for joining us on today's call. We know that you all are extremely busy and appreciate your continued support of the Investigators Working Group and the speakers that so graciously give their time and expertise to this group. We also want to thank NAG and NAGTRE for their continued support. This group continues to grow and accept new members, so thank you for spreading the word, and a special welcome to our new members. We continue to evolve with your help and support. So again, thank you. In a time of increased complaints, fraud, and investigations, we are all looking for ways to boost our productivity and make our work life a little easier. We are hoping that today's presentation may provide you with some ideas or discussion to help you or your office in that area. For over 40 years, Vermont's Consumer Assistance Program, or CAP, has leveraged its ability to help consumers in Vermont by partnering with the University of Vermont. CAP not only helps Vermonters solve their problems with assistance from the Attorney General's office, but at the same time provides a unique service learning experience to UVM students. Educating us today on this worthwhile program will be Crystal Baldwin, the CAP Program Coordinator. Over the last 12 years, Crystal has developed and improved the operational systems of CAP's college student onboarding and training program, as well as consumer complaint management. Crystal is an educator and skilled training professional. She holds a Master's of Education degree from the University of Vermont. She is a proud first-generation graduate of Berea College, a service learning institution. Lisa Jensen, the Assistant Director of CAP. Lisa learned about the Consumer Assistance Program when she was a student with CAP some time ago. After graduating from UVM, she worked as one of the program coordinators at CAP and earned a Master's in Public Administration for UVM. Lisa spent the next 20 years in nonprofit management positions in Boston and Vermont. Being part of the CAP team is inspiring and allows Lisa to combine her professional passions, advocacy, education, public service, and community impact. Margaret Tabb started her role as the program support generalist with the Consumer Assistance Program at the beginning of August 2021. CAP is a partnership between the University of Vermont, CDAE, CALSX, she can tell us what that is, and the Vermont Attorney General's Office. The program specialist generalist is on the front lines of interfacing with and assisting with constituent communication at CAP. The position also plays a critical role in training and mentoring the student consumer advisors every semester. In addition, Margaret's role also includes scam with loss mediation, facilitating and implementing community outreach events, phone calls, complaint mediation, updates, and referrals. Margaret, who grew up in Chicago, is a 2020 graduate of UVM. She graduated with a BS in Public Communication and minored in Community and International Development. As an undergraduate student, she took Consumer Law and Public Affairs with AAG Ryan Krieger and Consumer Law in Action and an Advanced Consumer Law in Action course with Chief of Staff Charity Clark. Ted Hobson, a longtime member of this group and a valued friend and associate, is the Assistant AG at CAP. After 9 years in the Vermont AG's office, he spent 30 years in private practice doing principally plaintiff civil rights and whistleblower cases. He returned to work for his fourth AG in 2017 at CAP, where he has been amazed at the breadth of problems and the skill and camaraderie of the staff in getting to resolutions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa and we can hear about this wonderful program that Vermont has established. Lisa?
Holly, could I just ask you one question, which is if people have questions, they put them in the chat?
Yes, please put them in the chat and we will get them, Ted, probably to you if we don't have time for all of them. If we have time at the end, we'll see what we can do.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, thank you, Holly, and hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here to talk about our unique program, the Consumer Assistance Program. And as Holly mentioned, we're just going to say CAP for short. The Consumer Assistance Program, as Holly mentioned, is a 40-year partnership between the Attorney General's office and the University of Vermont. So today's agenda is going to be a little more information about the Consumer Assistance Program. We're going to talk about our training and onboarding experience, which occurs twice a year with the fall and the spring semester here at the University of Vermont. And then we're also going to share the student experience. And I, again, am thrilled to be here with this amazing team that I get a chance to work with every day. So let's talk a little more about what is CAP. So 40 years ago, there sparked an idea of providing an opportunity for students who were studying at the University of Vermont in consumer studies or consumer law with an opportunity to apply that knowledge to community service. The Attorney General's office at that time, or I should say the Attorney General, had a conversation with a professor here at the University of Vermont who was teaching consumer law and created this opportunity for us to be here today. So what do we do at CAP? So CAP is a complaint, well, first and foremost, we are the complaint management program of the Vermont Attorney General's office. So we are the first stop for any consumer that has a question or a unresolved issue with a business. We're here to help and facilitate a resolution. As we mentioned, this is a really unique service learning experience for UVM students. So the University of Vermont has about 10,000 undergraduate students. We are one of, I believe it's now maybe 200 service learning classes here at the university. So we blend this constituent education or constituent services with educating Vermont students. And oh yeah, if you want to go back to we got a little more history to share. So again, unique service learning experience for students, constituent services, answering that information and referral hotline, taking complaints. We are the data clearinghouse for Vermont and also provide policy and consumer enforcement information and partnership with our colleagues in the Montpelier Attorney General's office. So the next slide that you saw briefly, this is where it all began. Through the extension service at UVM, there was a consumer clearinghouse, and that consumer clearinghouse merged with the Attorney General's office to create the Consumer Assistance Program. And the gentleman over on the right, so there's debate in our office, but I believe that's Jay Ashman, who was the Assistant Attorney General that taught consumer law and actually taught me way back when. Go ahead. So I want to share with you our office structure. So again, as a partnership, our staff has 4 full-time folks that are employed by the University of Vermont. We are lucky to have Ted, one Assistant Attorney General, here with us in our office, and of course Chester. We are part of the Consumer Protection Division of the Vermont Attorney General's office. So our colleagues, investigators, I hope some are probably on the call right now, our assistant attorney generals who we work in partnership when we identify, issue spot a particular concern that we want to raise to an investigative level. So how do students find us at UVM? So there's 10,000 students. We're one of about 200 service learning classes. There is a particular class that students sign up and register for. consumer assistance program, consumer law in action. It's interchangeable. So these are students who are coming from our Community Development and Applied Economic Department, which is what we are part of here at UVM. So public communications, community development, policy design. We also have the opportunity for students to continue with their service learning through what we call the CAP 2 class. And that's where they have the opportunity to do a deeper dive in a particular topic, work with us on a particular project, work with TED perhaps on some proposed legislation. We also have internships available. So we have 3 this semester. And at times we'll have a teaching assistant. So our student staff can also include a work-study student. We also have temporary staff. So as I mentioned, we teach our class spring and fall semester. So we do have a gap when students are on break or during the summer. And so we have temporary staff that assist us, most of whom have been through the CAP class. And we also have a wonderful graduate research assistant. We have had the opportunity to talk with some other classes on campus as well. So we're really reaching out to political science and small business and different departments here at UVM, so we can really invite a diverse group of students into the service learning experience. So what is a day in the life of CAP? It's ever changing. There are students who are in our service learning class. They join us for 1 hour a week in a seminar where we cover a particular law topic, consumer law topic, and then they have 6 hours in our office answering the consumer hotline, helping us mediate complaints, educating callers about scams, and getting callers to the right resource if we are not the right place to help. So we have an open office environment. It's professional, yet it is, we think, a fun environment. And we are able to teach the students, but we also learn from them, and we gather the energy and the questions and innovation that they have and ideas to continuously improve what we do here at the Consumer Assistance Program. So within, again, just to kind of wrap it up, so our office, we are frontline for the Vermont Attorney General's office. We have that consumer hotline. We provide we take scams, we provide scam reports, we do the complaint mediation, and we do outreach into our community, which is a very important piece of what we do, and we're hoping to do much more of that in the future. And I hope everyone can see the wonderful plant walls that Ted has contributed to our office, and of course Chester. And there are our wonderful students helping us provide these really important constituent services. So briefly, just want to highlight, just give you a sense, and kind of curious how that compares to what you see in your states in terms of top complaints and scam reports from last year. Not surprisingly, motor vehicles, #1 on our consumer complaint category. As you can tell, retail, home improvements, health and medical, and fuel are in the top 5. So I just want to point out health and medical is really related to billing issues. And fuel, we do have a specific consumer protection rule regarding propane. So we are the go-to agency if a consumer is having a service-related issue regarding their propane. Moving over to scams. So for 2021, what topped the list here was our computer tech support. That's a little bit of a variation. I think you've all probably heard of the Amazon phishing scam, email or phone call. Social security number phishing, still up there, #5. computer tech support. That's the pop-up of your virus protection has expired, the legal authority imposter, and of course, sweepstakes clearinghouse or sweepstakes lotteries and that publisher's clearinghouse. And you can read the rest.
So I'll talk a little bit about how these inquiries or reports help us do investigations and basically can hopefully change the law. This is, we just did a presentation to the FCC or helped with it. This is the number of Americans that have fallen victim to phone calls, illegal phone calls, scams in the last year, 59.4 million. And the estimate is that there's $30 billion in losses among those many millions. And if you look at the chart on the right, you can see that 37%, this is from UMail, 37% of robocalls are attempted criminal fraud, and there's over 1 billion a month. The orange line at the bottom there is the population of the US. So there's more than 3 calls for every person in the US, including people who don't have phones. And so we're involved in an investigation that's going to result in litigation very shortly. As a result of a report to our office, I believe in May of last year, and we did a trace back of the call, found the company that did it, and it turns out it's one of the largest companies sending foreign illegal robocalls to the U.S. And that's going to result in a federal lawsuit within a matter of weeks. So that's how we work together to try to deal with real problems from real people. Lisa, is this you?
This is me, Crystal.
Hey, Crystal. Hey, Crystal.
Thanks, Ted. So where we aren't able to address issues with enforcement, we of course have outreach. I manage most of our office's outreach education efforts. And with our outreach, we've recognized that the best scam prevention method is awareness. So what you're seeing on the screen is a number of methods we've taken to make sure people are aware of the various scams and consumer issues happening so that they have the tools that they need to identify the scams and then take steps to avoid them. On the screen, you see the Imposter Scams Take Steps to Verify campaign. That was part of our Imposter Scam Video Prevention Project. We have a specific project that we were able to do thanks to Sears grant funding, where we produced videos on some of the most daunting scams that we receive where loss occurs, romance scams, family emergency scams, and also business imposter email scams. So you definitely can check that out on our website. With the prevention project, we introduced also the SLOW strategy so that individuals have specific steps they can take to verify when scams are occurring. Other things you see here are our blog effort. We have about 2 blogs per month. It's called the CAP Connection blog. We produce it on the UVM website and support it by posting to social media with graphics and other alerts, particularly if there are ongoing scams that we want the public to be aware about. One thing that's great about having the service learning environment is that our PCOM students especially love to help us with these projects, and it's really nice to have their input and the fresh ideas. The Avoid Romance Scam graphic was actually created by in-house by one of our interns this semester. We just were able to edit it and post it up for Valentine's Day. We also have the Vermont Scam Alert system, which it goes through the Vermont Emergency Management System. People can sign up to receive scam alerts so that whenever scams are on the rise, we can alert the public through voice, text, or email to make sure they're aware of scams that are happening. Another great connection we have through UVM is we appear on the extensions Across the Fence weekday lunchtime program about once a month, where we can inform about scams and consumer topics that people should be aware of. And they have a really loyal viewership. So that's a nice connection. We even share a hallway with those folks. We respond to media inquiries that we receive. Our director of the program is actually also our Attorney General's communications director and chief of staff. So we stay plugged into the media through her connections. We partner with other groups too, like AARP and area agencies on aging, and we perform community presentations more or less to anyone who would like to have us present. Particularly this past year, we've presented to a number of nursing homes, senior centers. And again, our student contributions are great in this way. One of the graphics you see here of the Vermont Scam Alert System, we issued an alert on our social media with that graphic. The person featured in the graphic who's posing as a scammer is actually one of our former students who modeled for us, volunteering to do so. That graphic received 30,000 impressions on social media. Our typical impression rate is about 200. And similarly, the same student volunteered for us in our video campaign. And again, we got 1,000 impressions so far just in posting up the romance scam video with him in it. So we see a lot of great benefits with having this student connection. We also love that our students come from diverse backgrounds, and they have varying interests that really benefit our program in numerous ways, and they produce a lot of their own projects based on their interests. We've had students who have presented to high school students about buying a used car. Some have interest in pharmaceuticals, and so did some blogs on FDA approvals. We had another student complete a video on how to hire a home improvement contractor. And one of the greatest benefits really in the outreach realm is that these students go on to become consumer ambassadors. In my time at CAP, I've worked with about 280 students. That's a lot of people who leave our program, go out, they're able to be consumer matter experts for themselves and their peers. And that is a huge impact when you think about how many people they touch in their lives. So you can change the slide. Thank you. So now I'm going to just shift gears a little and talk about our onboarding and training program. Students don't come to us as these ambassadors. We teach them how to be ambassadors through our biannual onboarding training program. It's biannual because we follow the UVM course calendar, 2 semesters a year where there are 15-week semesters is fall and spring. So our course runs fall and spring. UVM also has winter and summer intensive courses. However, we don't participate in those course offerings for our initial program. However, students can come back to us and intern with us during those shorter periods of time. Our goal typically is 15 students each semester. We average around 12, at least during the time I've been here. So when you think about impact, with students working about 6 hours a week and 72 hours for the semester, all of those students ends up being about 20,000 hours of student donated time. These are capable professionals and we're getting their time for free. It's really amazing. And if you think about when the program was started, that's almost 70,000 hours. So it's really magical, I think. Next slide, please. So to begin, our training program, it starts with orientation, just like kind of any program you would anticipate. We welcome students into our team. They become immersed in our community of inclusion and great camaraderie. Really, all are welcome here and all are served. That is what we stress in our everyday. We want every student to be comfortable, and it could be an anxious time of learning, so we want them to know that we're there with them. We encourage laughter. We often laugh together as a staff, and we share in our own human experience. And because of the open office setting that you saw, everyone who's there gets to experience it. So I might share something funny my kids said that day, like, milk is made out of cows. Well, we know milk's not made out of cows, but it's funny. And then the fact that after she visited the farm, she said milk is from cows, and she learned something. We all can enjoy like that experience together. When students first arrive for orientation, first of all, they sign up for lab hours based on our standard schedule, roughly 8:30 to 4:30, and 6 hours a week. And then they show up for their lab time. They sign in, everyone has their own timesheet. We show them around the office to get them acclimated. We make sure they know like where the equipment is, how to use it, what the amenities are, which we have some great amenities thanks to Ted who buys us coffee. And we have a food table where we all just bring in food and share. Sometimes it includes fruit. And then everyone is shown to their assigned seating space. Now, typically students share desk space because they're working so few hours compared to full-time staff. But they do have specific computers where they are assigned to work. So they might work at 2 different stations while they're working over the course of the semester. They're provided with an overview of who we are and what we do so they understand our background. Before they come, we set up their tech credentials and their staff accounts, Vermont Attorney General accounts, so that they're ready to go when they show up. They have access right away. So we want to provide this welcoming experience. I've learned a lot over the years, but for in part, when I was a student, I often reflect on my time interning at Walt Disney World 20 years ago, the most magical place on earth. They have a college program where 14% of their workforce are actually college students that they recruit from around the country. I mean, they've learned nothing beats the energy, enthusiasm, and excitement to learn as a college student. At Disney World, my training was regimented and systematic, and I felt very welcomed. They also regarded me as a capable professional. So while I could have been a fish out of water, having gone to school in rural Kentucky, growing up in Little Vermont, I felt right at home. And so this is the goal that we try in the CAP office to come through. We want students to feel at home. We want them to be a contributing member of our team because they are capable professionals. So in order to help this along, we ensure that processes are streamlined ahead of time, and that their work is distinctly defined and categorized with manuals and guides. And we do this through our self-directed learning CapTrain website. And what is up here on the screen now is an example of CapTrain. It is the primary way in which we onboard staff in understanding our procedures and protocols. CapTrain is a self-directed learning training module that was created in-house here at the Consumer Assistance Program by me and another, one of our grad students actually. And though it might look like an intimidating site to create, it's easier than you might imagine because it is based within the Microsoft platform. So if your team is already using Microsoft, it's something that probably could be easily implemented. It's an ongoing reference guide. It's that staff and students alike can reference whenever needed. It contains files, guides, contact information, complaint resources, scam information, and so much more, really. Can keep reviewing CapTrain, we'll look through some of the pages that we have, so you can switch the slide. This is our welcome page. It gives a nice overview of some topics and trends. If you were to actually see the web page, it would scroll down. There's staff bios, an inclusion message, just to let people know like who they're working with, without having to go through being thoroughly introduced to folks, even though we would love to have a conversation with them And next slide. This is an example of one of the cheat sheets that we have for scams. So you can imagine when on the phone, maybe you're not so experienced at dealing with scam calls. This provides, especially students, a quick reference to understand what the scam is and then how they can help consumers. So just one guide of one of the scams that they might get a call about. And next slide. This is our complaint topic page. So there are so many different topics that could possibly occur. So we've created this landing page. The links actually link to a Word document that anyone could, within our staff, could actually edit and update. So it makes it kind of easy for even those who are less tech savvy to be able to make changes to the site in the future. And again, with this training site, anyone with credentials can access it. So anyone with a state of Vermont user and password can be able to see our CAP train as long as I've given them permission. So it's really handy even for remote staff. And next, thank you. So this is an example of how it includes intake guides and step-by-step processing. We're even able to put a video up here. We have many videos actually that link to Microsoft Stream. And when a user goes and clicks on each guide, they actually see our database with examples of what needs to be entered and then how. Next screen. We also have a hot topics page and section. This makes sure that any staff member who might not be here, in the day-to-day can be updated on different complaint trends, scams that are happening, settlements, data breach notifications. So what's happening and then what they should do with it. And it's all in this one place. This actually resolved something for us during the pandemic when everyone was working. We're still during the pandemic, but the beginning times when everyone was working remotely, because we knew if something new happened, we had one place we could go and look and see, all right, is this something I should know how to address? How do I address it? Oh, here's a letter that I can go ahead and send based on X call. So really useful information. And next. So our training programs, even though we have this site, the training program is an ongoing program. Our goal is that each individual will be able to independently work while also having the support of the open office setting. We have a continuous job embedded training and feedback program where if we hear something in the office, we'll address it with the student immediately. If the student has a question, they can ask us immediately because of that open office setting. We also use Teams and the chat program, often so that everyone knows. We have a specific chat with the whole group of students so that everyone knows a certain issue that might have been brought up is being discussed and they can access it and resource it, even if their lab hours weren't on a Monday and they were in on a Friday instead. We also have a curriculum piece. So the class is a class. Every Monday, we meet for about an hour over the 4-month period and discuss consumer protection issues. The first area of the class is intake management training. So they really are front loaded with like how to process calls and what's a referral and what's a scam and why do we take them anyway. And then the learning is moved and expanded to be more about detailed consumer protection laws with complaint examples and certain issues that might be on the rise, or usually we focus on our top areas of complaint like auto and propane that Lisa discussed earlier. We really encourage students to ask questions as they arise in the moment. Because of like that small office setting, students usually do. We sit down with each student and we walk through data entry and complaint management using the Law Manager database. So every student has that thorough training. So in addition to the online resource and reviewing it themselves and then having that supported training. They are encouraged to go back to CapTrain to find resources. And if they're having problems, they can always contact staff directly. Next slide. All right. Now, did you skip a slide? Yes. So we train students on phones as well. And similar to regular complaints, they receive step-by-step walkthroughs with scenario role play. First, students shadow calls led by staff completing their normal course of work. So typically often callbacks if a consumer had called, left a message and had us, like we determined it was a scam call, we'd call them back and ask the consumer if it was all right to conference in a trainee. Usually people say yes. Callback scripts are available in the office, so students can reference those once they do get on the phones. Students receive phone etiquette training, do's and don'ts of being professional on the phone. We see a lot of students these days, they text a lot and don't have a lot of phone interaction. So we try to make them really prepared before even getting on the phone. And we encourage them, if they have a difficult call or a call they just can't get through, to hold the call, ask a question, and definitely transfer difficult calls to staff. Next slide. And for those difficult calls, each person we recognize as a complex individual, both our students and those who call us. And so we always try to prepare for the unexpected. In doing this, we've established an escalation prevention and also de-escalation model that we teach our students. It's CARP, C-A-R-P, standing for Control, Acknowledge, Refocus, and Problem Solve. If you want to know more about it, it's a model by Robert Bacall, and it helps people move through those difficult calls. We also teach and review emotional intelligence because this skills can be developed, and every individual call can be difficult. A caller might be angry. And so we encourage students to learn some of the keys of emotional intelligence so that they can help people and empathize with the callers as they receive them. Before students perform calls, we first have them do callbacks before receiving inbound calls, and they'll review voice messages and prepare possible responses and troubleshoot potential scenarios. So that also helps them to be prepared before even going into those live calls and unexpected situations. Next slide. And so some challenges that we see in the onboarding and training process, we do see some difficulty with technology. So our account setup, it happens through our state digital services office. So it's an external office. So that means that there's a bureaucratic system, and requesting new accounts can take some time. And then also, if there are difficulties with accounts, that also could take some time to resolve. So if a student's only working for 2 hours, their account issue might not be resolved by the time their lab time is over. We've set up other workarounds and established other work they might be able to do while their account is down. This doesn't happen all the time, but it is one of our challenges. Another technical challenge is our Law Manager database. It can time out. It has these finicky selection items that really experience, it helps you to get used to, and there's kind of no way of getting through that. And it doesn't port in complaint forms. It's something that we would really love to have and would make the training process easier. Learning consumer protection, it's hard. There's a steep learning curve. Not only do students have to learn about consumer laws and regulations to kind of best help and analyze in a complaint, but They also have to learn the intricacies of Law Manager and how to enter items and make sure they're checking each box. So it can be cumbersome, and it can be a lot to expect from a full-time student. We also have to take into account all the various learning styles when we're training. So we have that training module, but it might not be the best for someone who's more likely to learn by doing. They might want to have a manual. So we do have other guides as well, like 2 different manuals that students can resource that are handheld, one being a quick phone guide and another being a processing guide. So just things to consider really when developing a training system. Also, self-motivation of students. So where our program is a class and they're not elected interns, we might get students who aren't fully committed to our mission and the program, or students who might be willing to accept a C or fall behind on their hours and prioritize other more interesting things in their lives over coming to our lab. And so we have had students not come to the course over the semester and have to make up their hours at the very last minute. And that can present challenges both for their learning as well as for the staff commitment and training, the unexpected student. The remote work environment also, while we adapted, because our team is very resilient, during the time period where we had to work from home, and even UVM had determined that the online courses was the option for one semester. We learned through that experience that really the best student experience and benefit for our program happens with the in-office immersion. So that's something to consider as well. Now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Margaret.
Hi, everyone. So I know we've been talking about service learning kind of in a more general sense. I'm going to, next slide, please. So we're going to be talking about supervising students and encouraging learning with those students. So again, we've been using service learning. So I thought we'd just start with coming up with a common definition of service learning in the lens of the University of Vermont. So it's an academic approach of combining a classic education and learning style with a community service aspect. So not only does it address the needs of the community, but it helps involve students in that process so they can address the needs of a community in a very pragmatic way. So the overall goal of service learning is to help students apply their learning on behalf of the many communities connected to the University of Vermont, which the Vermont Attorney General's office is included in that community. So how many students are taking service learning? Lisa mentioned earlier, we're about 1 of 200 service learning courses. According to the UVM's website, they have a specific division or office for the Community Engaged Learning Office, so CELO for short. According to CELO's website on UVM, 44% of 2020 graduating seniors took at least one service learning course. So this is an opportunity that students are looking for. Student benefits, it's a really great opportunity or class to take if the traditional style of learning is something that you're looking to move away from. So lecture halls, projects, you kind of get a more hands-on experience. And then we have the community partner benefits. So that would be, as Crystal mentioned, that's 70,000 hours since she's joined the program or been a part of the program that we have had students help. And our office gets to help identify those community needs through speaking with Vermonters and being able to pinpoint those trending issues or topics. So we'll touch more on what specifically the benefits of the student are in a couple slides. So Crystal mentioned a little bit about how our training process works, about how students start and go through a variety of different kind of modules, you could say, before they're kind of get a little bit more leeway, you could say, with complaint work and live calls, but it all starts with goal setting. So there's about 3 check-ins per semester, and we really try to tailor this experience to helping students reach their goals. So the 3 questions that we'll focus on that we ask are, what would you like to get out of this experience? What are you nervous about this experience? Or do you have any anxieties about anything? And generally, we do find that it's phones, which, as Crystal mentioned, CARP, that's very helpful in helping train students how to manage those phone calls in maybe not an emotionally reactive way. And then what are you most looking forward to about this experience? So through a variety of supervision and evaluations, those include rubrics, journals, and specifically their goals. But performance development is truly an ongoing process, as that's been mentioned before. So we do have those 3 check-ins per semester, and when we meet, let's say the second time, so the first time we'd get their goals, the second time we would check in, say, how are you doing at meeting these goals? If the student met those goals, we'd have them set new ones. So we really do try to tailor that experience. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk more specifically about how staff manage student complaint work. Myself, I am the individual that manages the inbox. So CTP stands for complaints to process, complaints to update, and complaints to discuss. Complaints to discuss are where we put our complaints that might not be appropriate for students to see, or work that might be beyond the level of mediation that we can accomplish in those 15 weeks. So talking with student involvement, Crystal touched on how we do have 1 class a week. That's CDA 159, which does build off of the Consumer Law and Protection class that Ryan Krieger, an AAG at the Vermont Attorney General's office, does teach. And we do find that a lot of students flow in. You're getting to do the hands-on work of what you learned about in 157. So it is a direct kind of flow through class. And then talking about their supervised work. So students start with a very basic level scams. They can listen into scam phone calls, and they can categorize in our data management system, Law Manager. They input different scams that have been reported to the office. Once they've kind of gotten the groundwork for scams and data entry, we move them on to referrals, which there is an active piece in those referrals as well. You're actually reaching out to the consumer and referring them to the proper agency and informing them why. And that does take a little bit more increased analytical work for the students, because they actually have to review and read through that complaint to determine what the appropriate agency would be and what the heart of the issue that the consumer had reached out to CAP is. And then we move on to complaint mediation. So that is kind of the heart of CAP. That is our complaint mediation work. And again, we do, Lisa showed the top 10 complaints. Generally, we do start students off with retail level complaints, so not propane, not really motorized vehicles. We do kind of start them off with a more basic level of complaint mediation. And then dependent on how the student grows in that aspect or their self-defined goals, we can kind of escalate that mediation if appropriate. So again, staff involvement, there's 1 staff that manages the inbox and all mailed correspondence. Then every semester, we generally do have to change our work plan because, again, student schedules are changing. But generally, we have 1 individual record voicemails a certain day. We have a varying level of staff either take those live calls or do those callbacks, which Crystal then touched on how the students are involved in those phone calls as well. And generally, starting off, all complaint work is assigned to students, and as students become more comfortable with the CAP work and more trained, they do get kind of more leeway to choose their own types of complaints and perhaps even specialize in a specific type of complaint work. So talking a little bit more about how to process folder by folder, we do have a color coding system that myself implements in the inbox specific to correspondence, and that indicates what we should be doing with that piece of correspondence. So whether if it's a complaint that we should process, an update from a consumer, a business, a referral, etc. So we do teach our student those those color coding systems so they can have a better idea and streamline that process as well. So this is the really exciting slide, which is what are the benefits of the student experience? Why is this a good idea to have a program, partnership between an Attorney General's office and a university? So really talking about that student learning or that service learning class. talking about building transferable skills. These are valuable skills that any person who can learn them are going to be using them for the rest of their life. Just an example of, kind of what the categories of transferable skills are. There's communication, which is writing, presenting, resolving conflict. Information management, so sorting data, understanding and organizing principles, analysis and critical thinking, research, interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, social justice, civil engagement and citizenship, creativity, physical and spatial, so showing manual dexterity to be specific, so numbers, calculating or manipulating those numbers, and additional areas, so social media perhaps, online communication. Really, you can address the needs of what your specific organization wants to focus on, but it does give a lot of flexibility as well. So talking about building those transferable skills, it's a hands-on learning opportunity, which again, it's not a very traditional lecture style class. We do have the class once a week, but that goes directly into what the students will be applying in office that week. So it really is an opportunity for students to kind of take control back of their own learning, define what their goals are, and kind of, if you're experiencing maybe some, lackluster or not having that same passion for learning, I definitely know, speaking from personal experience, this opportunity kind of got me excited to learn again. Talking about empowering students to solve those complex issues, in essence, you're self-advocating. You're creating and you're helping train actionable members of society. These students who are going to be going into the workforce, they're contributing to community development. They're becoming effective communicators. They're using these transferable skills and they're applying them. You're creating connections in the community. And we do find that actually leads to a very high retention rate of a younger population in the state of Vermont. And sometimes, as Crystal mentioned, we have students who come back, I believe 3 students from last semester came back as interns or CAP 2 students. So we do find students want to come back to CAP, want to continue working here. And I think that speaks to us as well. I know I stayed in Vermont to be a part of this experience. Then we're talking about trust in government. That's a really big piece of specific what the Vermont Attorney General's office focuses on. We really want to reestablish that trust in government, and it starts by grassroots, by having students know the experience, word of mouth to their friends. And also too, you're getting varying viewpoints. You're speaking with Vermonters and sometimes people who aren't even connected with the state of Vermont. So students really get to connect with a multitude of people and see those varying viewpoints. And lastly, professional development. We're preparing these individuals for workforce, career-related jobs, specifically in public service. So they're really learning their capacity to serve others, and they're practicing networking as well. So talking about professional development of students, but also staff. There is a feedback process that we do at the end of our class. We do request students, and we ask them to be as honest, very transparent, which it's not always, a positive experience. Sometimes students really have suggestions on what would make this a better learning opportunity, and we try to implement those as much as possible. So it's a self-assessment. It is a job-embedded learning, and so talking about these evaluations, we're not just getting, multiple bullet points of a strongly disagree to a strongly agree. We actually have them take time and reflect back on their experience, reflect what could have made that better, reflect on what really did seal the deal on that experience, if they would recommend this to other people. So we really try to navigate a variety of points or reflections on the CAP class. So now we're going to speak a little to the student experience, and speaking again to those surveys. We have a couple of student testimonials that we'd like to share with you.
Thanks, Margaret. I'll share the first one. One student, Coral, stated, CAP allowed me to become comfortable having discussions with people facing difficult situations, sometimes delivering less than positive news.
Melanie said, CAP was huge in sharpening my interpersonal communication skills, especially with people of diverse backgrounds, which is a skill that goes a long way in the professional world.
Rachel shared, CAP provided me with a strong working framework of professional communication and mediation skills.
And from Cameron, CAP influenced me to pursue a legal career, helping others while I'm figuring out exactly where that path will take me. I continue to rely on my CAP experience moving forward. So again, we want consumers, as Crystal said, we want to teach and empower students to be consumer ambassadors. We want them to connect with us. We do outreach into our UVM community to engage them in our service learning class. And I see that we have about 5 minutes left, so we would absolutely love to have questions. So please raise your hand, write in the chat, or just let us know what questions we can answer.
So one question we did have was, what happens if the student is moving on and the complaint is still in process? What do you do with that?
I can speak a little to that. We really do try to have students see the full cycle of a complaint. So ideally, they would be taking the phone call of the complaint, sending the complaint form, and then resolving that. If that is, complaint work, there's a hopeful time frame, but sometimes there's more of a realistic time frame, and you can't always gauge what the process of that is going to be. In that regard, either an intern would be helping at the same time, or a staff member would take over that complaint. But again, because we're assigning these complaints and we're working with them directly one-on-one, or more so in that open office environment, we are pretty aware of where the student is at that on that complaint, as well as I am the individual who categorizes the inbox. So I would be seeing, and I am the one who puts any updates, any complaints, notes, or any other documents or additional pieces related to that complaint. So we do have them try to be as involved as possible, but unfortunately sometimes, based off of that unknown of when that complaint's going to be resolved, we do have to, involve a staff or a student, or excuse me, an intern.
And I just want to add a point of clarification for the group. So our system typically is first in, first out. So a new complaint first comes in, it's dealt with first, and that means anyone might take it, including a student or staff member. We typically only assign higher level complaints directly to a designated staff member. And that helps with triaging when students leave, because it's easy for others to take them up based on first in, first out.
We only have a couple minutes left, and this certainly is an innovative and exciting program and something that's taken a lot of time and effort. And I see Ted wants to play something.
Yeah, get this last thing. If the sound works, if sound doesn't work, please let me know. But this, I thought, rather inspiring from our Attorney General.
It's very faint, Ted.
It's not playing. No sound.
It's very quiet.
Can you increase the volume?
To get on the phone, to listen,
There you go.
to respond, to try to help. Oftentimes it's to navigate the bureaucracy of state government so people can solve their own problem. That is a great undertaking, and it's incredibly important. And I want to thank you guys in advance for the work you're going to do, because this is greater than just consumer assistance. I want to be clear about that. I feel really strongly about this. That this really is an effort to restore people's belief in our government and in democracy. I'm an elected official. I'm accountable to the people of this state. I try to reflect their values in many of the things that I do as Attorney General. For the Vermonters in the room, for me, those values are trusting people, believing in the goodness of people, understanding that for a whole host of reasons that the world is not a fair place, that it's our obligation to help people where we can, to make their life a little bit easier, that people work really hard to provide for their families, to save money so they can keep a roof over their head and maybe someday take a vacation, and even at some further day down the road, maybe perhaps send their kid to college or even think about retirement. And when they're getting ripped off, they're getting scammed, it's not just a scam. It's an attack on their livelihood. It's an attack on everything that they've worked so hard for. It's an attack on their sense of security. It's an attack on their peace of mind. And the work that we do to restore that, to give them that certainty that they're going to be okay, that their money is not going to be stolen, that they're not going to get ripped off, is incredibly uplifting, powerful work. And I want you guys to know that, because it's not just consumer assistance. This is much deeper, and you guys are the tip of the spear on this as we work to try to help people. You know, I'm a Democrat.
That's it.
Well, go ahead, Ted. What were you going to say?
Oops, I'm not going to play that again. So, okay. So thank you very much, Holly. I guess we're at the hour. And thank you, everybody from CAP, all the wonderful people which you've heard from.
Well, I want to echo my thoughts for this working group, for Crystal, Lisa, Margaret, and Ted. It was a wonderful presentation. Certainly you have a wonderful program there. I wish our state had something similar, and I can see so many uses and benefits of it, but I see how much hard work and effort and thought and just everything has gone into making that program work, and it obviously does. So thank you so much. Any additional questions, please let me know and we'll get them to Ted and he can distribute them to the group. We'll go ahead, and this should be recorded if you missed it or want to see it again. Great job, you guys. Just thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.